Now, we invite Satyajit Chandra, Senior Vice President and Global Head of SGS. It shows that unconditional love and affection, and I would say that the passion towards WFM. You're known for that. Thank you so much. Before we move on, I take this opportunity to introduce Satyajit Chandra. Satya is going to talk about what is new in WFM function and the role in innovation business world. Satya comes with more than 2.5 decades of rich experience in web designing to programming and operational to workforce management, and he has worked for companies like Wipro, Webtech, Agindex, and Telis, Tilitech, and many other organizations. In fact, Satya has been recently promoted from Vice President to Senior Vice President and has been heading HGS globally in workforce management, is managing a very big team globally, and is known for a lot of things. In fact, we've been hearing him in a lot of aspects of WFM solutions, and WFM, function is solving the problem and bringing innovations, also like operation excellence and WFM leadership and fraud, detection and risk management and many other aspects of, like specialty that, he carries. And he carries huge spectrum of business knowledge, and also like is transformed many of the business functions, especially is being known as a transforming leader in the organization. In fact, Satya is one of the top 10 influencers in 2020 as per the GWFM's research that we had done along with other thought leaders in the world. And always love listening to you, Satya. Your passion towards WFM always carries longer. With this, let me not take much time. I invite Satya to be on the screen. Great to have you with us again, Satya.
So thank you, Shiva. Thank you, Partho, for this event and for the great introduction you had. I'm a little groggy. It's not the usual time, when I'm up and working. So excuse me for that a little. I'm still with my cup of coffee today, so just trying to work through this. Also want to thank Ian and Vineet sir for a great session earlier today. We had two sessions, one about what is to expect in the future from a WFM standpoint, and the second session from Vineet was extremely insightful on how do you prepare as a leader and influence your teams to be prepared for the future and take on more. I think both of these sessions were very insightful. I'll quickly get into my discussion without wasting much time here, guys. So, I'm going to talk about what is changing in WFM and what is coming up from a role and a function standpoint. So, I'm going to just show a very simple slide. If you could see here, this simple chart shows you what used to be pre-COVID situation from a work at home standpoint and a brick and mortar, if you look at it. This is based on certain surveys which have been done by global agencies across the globe in terms of pre-COVID situation from a work at home standpoint. If you see, about 93% of people used to work from a office, which was not their home, but some facility that they used to work from. Depending upon what your office could be. Your office could be a field also, but they used to go to an office. This was pre-COVID situation. Post-COVID, this is not too far back. It's only about 18 months back. You see that situation has completely changed. From a 7% of people working at home, that number has gone up to about 60, 70%. And it could be very different depending upon the region, the kind of industry, what part of the continent you are, and where, and what is the type of work that you do. These numbers could be much higher. It could be as high as 85, 90% also in some organizations, as like yours as well. Now, this is common fact. Everybody is aware of it. But why are we talking about it, right? What has this done to our lives? What has this done from a workforce professional? And that's what I'm going to quickly try and bring up here, so that what challenges this whole situation posted. So let's quickly look at some of those. We all know it led to a lot of unemployment and job cuts, right? People are not able to work, and that's why the job cuts happened. The business were not operating. Wherever it was, even if there was inclination to work, they were not set up to work remotely. So that was another challenge there. The third impact was the bullwhip effect, right? Some of you would be aware of uh, the supply chain model, or in our case, the procurement process, right? From procuring the system, the procuring raw material in a BPO environment, which is the agent, all the way to their hire to retire process. All the entire things that you do. A bullwhip effect would be, a small infraction in the supply can lead to a major impact on the demand, or vice versa. And you would have seen that a lot happening during this pandemic. There were so many situations where even the basic stuff was not available to people, because somewhere else the lockdown had happened, and the stuff couldn't come into a city. Those kind of things, that's how it impacted the industry. Obviously, all that led to financial consequences. The pressure on reducing cost was even more. The pressure on managing the revenues even far more. Then, because of all these things, you see, it led to a change in the attitude towards a career of people. People would want to get into any kind of job at any point of time, rather than people who are ready to go far into their studies and are taking it even further more seriously could not, and would want to pick up a job sooner than later. Those kind of things happened a lot. We also saw a lot of job insecurity in people. So even when they could see that, while the jobs were there, but if they would see a opportunity outside, they would want to jump ships and and take up another one, because they felt that it's even better, it's more lucrative, let's take it, rather than the conservative approach of staying in that organization and building up a tenure. Excuse me. So those are some of the things that we saw. Employee engagement, you would have all seen in your organizations. Uh, Initially, it was a challenge 18 months back on how do you engage your people. I think over a period of time, every organization has done a phenomenal job of finding different ways and tools and methods and people to how you can engage with your leadership, with your frontliners, with your middle management, to ensure that there is ample engagement. So those things are happening. uh, Regulatory compliance issue and compliance related issues. That was probably one of the most important one. Infosec was the other most important challenge that we saw. So, here are some of the things that happened. Where does WFM come into all of this? I think all of this is related to some kind of a resource management, if you look at it. That's where a WFM resource comes into play, where we could have contributed, or we can contribute to a great extent. And we can quickly look at how we can do and what are the things which are evolving in the WFM world. I've just put those, here as a quick bullets here. So you can see, a lot of things are changing from a planning standpoint. Things that we never used to think about before. In a remote environment, those things have completely changed. Like uh, in our environment, mostly from a BPM or a BPO standpoint, if you look at it, your hiring, your catchment areas have changed. There used to be footfall into your business, into your buildings. You don't have buildings anymore. You don't have offices anymore, which means you have to go out and reach out to people. So how do you do that? That takes more time. That requires more resources. Will you be able to still fill in a class on time? All those things have changed. So that is evolving. So your planning process changed. You have to deploy technology to people's homes and residences so that they are able to do their work. That requires more time, more effort, deployment of systems, recouping of those systems. All those things have changed from a planning standpoint. Your productivity measures have changed. Uh, Specifically talking about from a planning standpoint, something which is very familiar to most of the people, especially the budding guys, WFM resources who have just got into planning. You would have heard a lot about your tardies and shrinkages, right? Uh, Working remotely, you would have seen tardies have gone down, but your downtimes have gone up. All those things that you never used to figure out before. that you've started, building up into your plans now. The automation, adoption towards automation and things. Some of these things you heard from Ian's session also. A lot of companies are investing faster into automation now, which was happening at a slower pace. It would have still happened, but may have happened in another 5 to 7 years. But because of the pandemic, everything got fast tracked, and this happened before. Similarly, multi-skilling, upskilling, shift in volumes from the traditional way of people calling you or sending you emails. SMS is a new, faster and easier method, that's picking up. So your technology changes because if you want to support people through SMS, those kind of things are evolving from a WFM standpoint. When these things evolve, they are just not an evolution of the technology. It also is an evolution of the mindset. It's an evolution of the skill set of the person or the resource who's supposed to handle these things, right? So which means your role is evolving, your skill set is evolving, your scope of work is evolving, a lot of things. I think Vineet also alluded to uh, from a learning standpoint. All those things put together is what is going to lead you to a more evolved WFM, because now that is what has become the need of the art. This would have anyway happened, personally, I feel, but it would have happened at least 5 to 7 years down the road, from an automation standpoint, from a digital transformation standpoint, from a change of the workforce type of the people, right? So all these things I imagine would have anyway changed, but got fast tracked because of the pandemic itself, and the need changed. Now it will always be continuously evolving. That tomorrow's need would be far more different. Uh, so these are some of the observations that I have seen, which is changing in the industry. There are too many points here, but I've just summarized all these into one single slide, and we can talk a little more about it. And if you have any questions, we can go through it. Some of the main trends that I've seen from a function and a role standpoint in the WFM are, there are some of those that are listed here. From a transformation standpoint, you'll see there are more digital transformation solutions that are coming up. People are more relying on automations, whether it is for self-paced learning, self-scheduling, or self-help, or from transformations from how you hire people, how you onboard, how you make them learn different skills. All these things, all the companies are investing a lot more into a digital and automation standpoint. Your skills are changing. People are no more going for particular qualifications as much. I think that's what Ian mentioned a lot, and I think that's a very good point that he mentioned in this session. That he doesn't go after people who know how to manage a particular tool, whether it's IEX or Blue Pumpkin or Aspect or whatever, but it is more about the skill of how you can adapt to a particular environment and manage the work that has been given to you and come with innovative solutions. So that's where your skill has become more important than your qualification and what you've done in the past. It is more about mindset and your attitude on how you can make something happen. Your workforce has become more contingent now. Your skills are prioritized, like I mentioned in point two. Your skills are prioritized more over the kind of role that you've handled before. You could be a manager in managing something very large, but if the skill that is required today is not there, then the designation versus the role versus the skill, it's a completely different ball game now. We're looking at more scalable solutions that have come into the market. Because of the pandemic, all businesses are looking at how do you de-risk your business by fragmenting it a little bit. At least from what I have seen in quite a few clients that we work with, that they don't want to operate out of just one geography. They may want to operate out of multiple geographies. So because of how the pandemic works, or there are so many other influences which are out of the control of a regular business. So how do you de-risk it? So then you put it into multiple locations, which means you need to have a solution which is scalable across geographies. It can manage to the different labor codes of different geographies. It talks to the requirements and the underlying requirements of any other business by geographies. So all those ways, your solutions have to be far more scalable than it used to be before. Scheduling is something, like I mentioned, it's a very common term that you all would have heard recently, the gig economy. Now the gig economy, they don't want to be dictated on. You have to work from 9 to 5, or you have to work from 12 to 4, or whatever the time frame may be. They pretty much want to choose the time when they can work, because that is the time they have to donate to you, right? So those things have changed. Now, if you have a big pool of resources who are ready to give you time and ready to work for you, you have to be enabled to give them the option of when they can choose to work. If they can choose to work, you need to have the tools on how they can choose and work. So there's a lot of automation in the tools also for a skill-based work that I want to do at a particular time frame that I can give to you, along with how I do it and how I choose to do it, or those kind of things. So that's something that we've seen. Also, the other piece from a technology standpoint is there's a lot more emphasis on analytics. I think this is also one of the points that I think Ian pressed on. So analytics is becoming more and more important. It was always important. I think the need has become more important now. You would have seen a lot of integration happening. I think Shiva, you mentioned that in your earlier talk, where if you have an in-house tool, can you advance your tool, and the tool has to talk to multiple other tools. I think that is what we're seeing happening a lot more. That's where you see the programmers are becoming even more important now, even in the WFM world, where you utilize their skills to integrate your WFM tools or platforms to multiple other tools, so that you can be talking to several tools at the same time. You can churn out all the information, convert it into a intelligent analytics to figure out what needs to be done there. So these are some of the aspects that I personally see which is changing from a WFM standpoint, whether it is to do with the function or the role or the technology, or from a setup standpoint. So I'll just take a quick pause here, and would be happy to take any questions if there are, and elaborate on anything else.
Thanks, Satya, for very insightful slides, and the journey that you talked about is really very insightful. Let me check if there are any questions from any of them. Team, you can raise your hand where I'll be able to unmute you. You could have both the way conversation.
Hey Shiva, Abhishek here. Can you hear me?
Yes, Abhi.
Hey Satya, would be really good to pick your brains, and actually it's a precursor to some of the questions that I'll be privileged enough to ask an empowered panelist group later on. But this is coming from that same school of thought. So you spoke about all the new things, interesting thoughts, definitely. How would you look at evolving the unit from an analytics perspective now that the focus on WFM providing those kind of insights or inputs to the leadership team becomes all the more crucial, right? It's table stakes to an extent at the moment, right? If you'd agree. So how would you talk about evolving that faction of your team?
Okay. Hi, Abhishek. So, if I understand the question correctly, are you referring to how analytics is evolving? You were breaking in between or two.
So, yeah, I mean, analytics as a unit itself is evolving. That's one. And second, how would you want your WFM team to encapsulate that, or maybe onboard analytics, and then bring out the insights and inputs to the leadership team as such? So that would be a strategic evolution for WFM as well, wouldn't it? I mean, and that's how, would you have a roadmap, or do you have started the journey? And if yes, what's your view on it?
Okay, sure. I understood now. So yeah, analytics, it's like I mentioned, and I'm sure you all have observed, it's playing a far more vital role now. Something that we used to call as trends before, typically in a WFM environment, and looking at last six weeks, 8 weeks, 3 months of data. I think analytics is with far more connected data points from different sources, whether it is from new hire standpoint, learning curve standpoint, your performance from 30, 60, 90, or even further out. All those things put together with AI, if you can predict how your performance is going to be, or how you predict your business is going to be, all those points put together in a WFM environment, which is not just looking at trends anymore, but it's more looking at patterns of the business, looking at the cycles of the business and the patterns of the business. I think that's where the change is happening, rather than looking at from just the last 6 to 8 weeks, 9 weeks of data, 12 weeks of data, looking at last few batches of data. I think it is more data points coming in from connected systems, whether it is the CRM system, whether it's the learning system, whether it's your productivity system, whatever you may call it, and an engine that can run on all of it to tell you how your business is going to operate based on certain inputs that you're giving in. That's how it changes. I think your planning continues to be the same. It is just for a WFM resource, it is how you can include these data points into your day-to-day planning process, so that you can look at the future far more and start forecasting about the future, and you get more closer to your outcomes. I think that's how it is changing. It could be a little more trivial, Abhishek, I would say, when it comes to actually forming an engine around it to drive it. But conceptually, this is how I would look at it.
Thanks, Satya. Understood. Thank you.
Thanks, Satya, for the very emphasized answer to the WFM analytics. All right, so I don't see any questions now. I think if there are anything, we'll catch up in the upcoming panel discussions with that. Thank you so much for taking your time out for making this keynote happen. Really loved your session. I'm sure that there'll be questions at the chat box. Look at it, because of time constraint, we will look at that and we will answer to them later. Thank you so much, Satya, for taking your time.